All right, hello everyone. This is the November 16th Static Site Editor Engineering Weekly Sync. First item on the agenda is that unless anybody else here disagrees, I think this is going to be the last Static Site Editor Weekly Engineering Sync. As we've mentioned on some of these recorded calls, but all of you are obviously aware, the Static Site Editor group is being merged with the editor group. We have a new consolidated editor group that is focused on the web IDE, snippets, single file editor, static site editor, and under that new team, we'll be having a different meeting schedule and we'll be recording all of those, but this meeting makes it a little redundant. So we probably wouldn't have this one moving forward. That said, Lauren, there are still really great opportunities for you to come in and offer input. We need to work out what it means for like what responsibilities we have over the handbook, because that category isn't carrying over. And sadly, this would mean probably our last weekly meeting with Sealy, because he's moving on to a different group. And we wish him all the best, of course, and he'll be just a Slack message away. He's not going far.
I think it's also good to point out that, as far as I know, there still isn't any clarity on who the DRI for the handbook is and who's going to be ultimately responsible for it.
It is good to point that out, and we'll continue to try and get the answer.
I posed the same question to our group, to Danielle, so they're aware of that.
It's going to take a little while for the dust to settle and figure that out, but we're working on it. So this being our last meeting, we still have stuff to talk about. We're wrapping up this milestone and we want to get some updates. I did see someone posted a link to the editor deep dive recording. That was definitely a highlight of last week for me. I was only able to join over the phone. I didn't get to see everybody's faces, but I called into that one. It was a very informative meeting. Enrique, you did a great job running through not only the architecture proposal, but how we got there. It's a must watch if you didn't get to join. It's a really, really great meeting and a great example of collaboration across the two groups, now one group. So I think the takeaways were really exciting as far as understanding more about the architecture of Editor Lite and how it might complement the work that you've been doing and how it might fit together. I don't know if you want to talk any more about your takeaways or leave that for the Static Site Editor update.
Yeah, I'm gonna leave it for that update.
Cool. So the nav and settings work. So let's just do a quick update on work in progress. There were a couple issues already closed. I think the two open ones are related to analytics and turning off items on the left side nav. So Chad, do you want to take the analytics?
Sure. So this one's dragging out a bit. I went kind of deep trying to understand analytics, maybe a little bit too deep, but the long story is, if we want to have events for self-hosted and or granular events for like every click that a given user makes, even if it's the same user, as opposed to just tracking unique clicks over a period of time, aggregated by day per user, that is more difficult, and it involves like Redis HLL, and I talked to several different people and took notes, a lot of notes on it, and possibly even some things that aren't even implemented yet that Vasily is still working on. He's one of the people I talked to. So took a while to talk to all of those people and come to that conclusion. So then I decided, as noted on the issue, let's just do it the way that it's known to work, which is with straight snowplow, but that's only going to give us data on the on gitlab.com initially. So I started implementing that end of last week, and then I got stuck because the new events I wrote aren't showing up in the snowplow plugin. Lots of other ones are showing up, but it seems like nothing that I change or touch shows up. Try to get a review app working to see if it worked on a review app, and that seems to be failing because of a flaky test that is persisting even after a rebase. So the implementation seems really straightforward. I just am unable to confirm that it's working, and I'm not sure if I have the plugin misconfigured or I'm actually doing something wrong. So asking questions and for help on that.
Sorry, I was muted. I said that sounds good. Analytics are rather confusing for me around here too. I still haven't wrapped my head around
a vast topic, as I found out. But given this approach, you can let me know what you think, but I don't think it's as critical. Like even if we miss the date for this particular milestone, since it's going on gitlab.com, we're not going to have to wait a whole month to see it. It should be out whenever it gets pushed.
Any data is good. All data is better. So we would want to definitely keep pushing on getting the self-managed data, but I understand that there are complications there. I don't know if you said you've asked around. I have just learned that our very own editor team member, Fran, is something of an expert related to instrumentation and analytics. So if you haven't reached out to him, it might be good to run it by him.
Sure. I think this particular one is like only happening on the client. The backend one seemed to be working fine.
Okay.
So I'll dig into it more.
Cool. Well, appreciate it, and we can follow up on Slack and in the issue for more. And Vasily, the left-hand navigation consistency stuff.
So for this task, I have a MR draft that I created some time ago, and actually it works. So you click on the toggle and it removes the element from the navbar, but still it's on the stage that I need to finalize it. And I hope I'll find some time this week to work on that and get it to the point that it can be reviewed. And after that, I think it will be possible to use my MR as an example for the future changes, because I think we can repeat the process for other tabs that do not have the toggle yet.
Great. If you could maybe find time this week to do a little bit of knowledge transfer with Chad, I'm assuming at this point that as we carry over into the editor group in the next milestone, this work is not obviously going to be wrapped up for every feature. I'd like somebody else to get a really good sense of what's going on the back end. And I'll ask Roman and see if there's anybody else who wants to be involved in that knowledge share, just to make sure that there's a smooth transfer and we can pick up running with your MR and apply it to the rest of the features. That would be real helpful.
Yeah, sounds good. Okay.
Awesome. Thank you. Lauren, you want to chat some on GitLab.com, growth marketing?
Yeah, sure.
Oh, sorry.
I think Enrique,
I skipped entirely over the static site editor feature. In my mind, we had already talked about it, but that's right. Enrique, you said you wanted to chat more about it.
Yeah, I have some comments. So last week, before jumping in what I want to do this week, I want to make some remarks about last week. Basically, we met with our new teammates of the editor group. My main takeaway is that they have some strong opinions about how we should start implementing and delivering this WYSIWYG. From the point of view of how we can integrate with Editor Lite and Monaco, but also from the point of view of how we have to implement the WYSIWYG editor itself. So I learned a lot. I think one of the lessons that I really liked from last week is that I think that we can realize value from the WYSIWYG editor earlier if we rely on the Markdown preview endpoint, because the main challenge of integrating the WYSIWYG editor in places like the issue description and the merge request description page is that there are many elements that doesn't have doesn't add any value by displaying it, like a reference to a merge request or an issue. And it would be very expensive to work on implementing a renderer for those elements. So I think that we can rely on the work that we've already done in the backend to support those features quicker. I want to incorporate those thoughts in our WYSIWYG implementation plan, and then start creating implementation issues for that. This week, I'm gonna also be talking more with Dennis about Editor Lite and Monaco. And I want to understand if the idea of integrating a WYSIWYG editor as a view of the Editor Lite it still allows us to create an editor where the WYSIWYG editing experience is the main actor, like in the user interface, right? Because in the case of the side-by-side editor, we have a WYSIWYG editor first, and then we have the source tab that is like in the background. And I want to understand if we can actually do that with Editor Lite. So yeah, that's my goal this week. Learn more about Monaco, and then starting creating a concrete plan of how we are gonna deliver this.
Yeah, that's great. I learned a lot last week about Editor Lite. There's still so much more for me to understand as well. I know Dennis offered up doing another like deep dive on his side about how it's architected and the potential it has there. So we can try and get that scheduled as soon as possible. And sounds like a good set of goals for this week. And I agree with the main point about making it so that the editor can sort of default to the WYSIWYG rich text editing experience. I think we've found in our research pretty consistently that a real-time preview, even a real-time preview that can be edited, is not the same as a rich text editing experience to users. So, you know, dropping them into a code view, even if there are really nice WYSIWYG features available, is a barrier to collaboration, or can be, I should say. All right, so the other issue I just wanted to ask you about, because I saw it on your, I think I saw it on your Slack update. Are we good to go with your MVC on committing, pre-committing the formatting for handbook updates as a way to reduce the noisiness of MRs?
Yes, we are.
Cool. We can chat more about this on Slack, but as I was talking about that with a couple people, and it still seems like a good way to go, but they were following up on just like a couple other alternatives that we've already discussed, like pre-formatting. And I remember weeks back, Yumi and Jean on a Slack thread about, or maybe it was an issue thread about maybe revisiting the reformatting in bulk as well. So we can talk about that offline. Okay, now for real, Lauren, your turn to chat.
Okay, for real. Still working on adding JavaScript to the Webpack. Working through some bugs. It's adding a Webpack bootstrap in front of every JavaScript file, which adds a lot of weight, and it's not working. So I got to figure that out. And I'll assign over to you to Chad once I know it's actually good for your eyes. Then I'm adding Netlify CMS to the code base, to the marketing site. It's really lightweight. The part that I need to figure out is who has access to the admin of our instance and can set up an OAuth application. I just did it through my profile for the proof of concept, which works great, but I don't think we want to do that for the actual instance. Is security the right place to, the right group to have do that?
I would lean to yes. I mean, that's what the first place I would look as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll just, I'll keep asking them. So,
Also on the Webpack stuff, if you haven't reached out to some people, maybe just run your problems by then. I think Dennis has experience with it, and maybe Lucas Eipert too.
yeah,
He's on paternity leave, but I think that a good group to reach out is the Frontend Foundation team. I want to give you a link to the channel. Mike Grayling is the one who is working all the time on Webpack.
okay. Yeah, that would be great. I think I'm still running into issues from coming from like a JavaScript task runner point of view into Webpack, which it is not. So,
I think it's one of those things, sort of like the analytics, like you just have to know how to configure it, but if you don't know, you don't know.
it goes kaboom. That's all I got.
Cool. Let's move on to GitLab docs. Vasily's got some pretty amazing news here in this update. I'll let him share.
Sure. So last week I was working on the reduction of the total size of the documentation generated package. And when I started, it was around like 600 megabytes. After a couple of optimizations, like a couple of ideas I tried, it dropped to 80 megabytes, which is should be good enough for us to include it to the omnibus package. It will increase the size, but not that significantly. So I think I will stop with optimization here. And this week I plan to add actually documentation pages to the omnibus. I need to update some scripts that we execute to build this package. So I'm gonna test it. I'm gonna see if the how much actual size increase it will be at the end. But yeah, I'm looking, I think it's like a positive thing, and I hope I will be able to do it.
Good work on that. Gonna miss you.
Thank you.
How do you achieve that dramatic reduction? that's crazy.
Yeah, that's was some inefficiencies we had, like in HTML code, we generated a bit more HTML than necessary, plus we could move some images and reduce the size, and then finally compression. So
I think Chad's jealous that you got to move images out of a repository. That's what he's been wanting to do all year.
Yeah. How do you achieve those gains in a lot of different ways? Usually the answer.
Yeah. So I don't have. I should mention that GitLab Docs is coming over to the editor group as a category that we oversee. Vasily is not coming with us to the editor group. In talking on Slack, he graciously offered to continue working on the offline docs since he's been heads down on this for a long time. I'm going to run that by his new EM. I don't want to assume that's going to happen, but we'll take that as an action item this week to see if we need to, pass that off and get somebody up to speed, or if you can just kind of work on it, maybe in a slightly reduced capacity over the next milestone or two or something like that. And then obviously we would continue picking up any other docs work on the editor group. So by way of product updates, I don't have much. Michael dropped this in the product section, but it's a real interesting opportunity for us on the settings and nav work. We have a hackathon coming up, and I was talking to Marcel, the design director, and he mentioned this as well. I think this is a good opportunity for us to identify some low-hanging fruit for the settings and nav categories, and try and spread the word around the community that these are things that we would really like to fix. The only one that I've seen so far, granted, I haven't actually dug into the hundreds of issues in our epics with this lens on, but the first one that I noticed was related to just making keyboard shortcuts more visible and easier to navigate when you do find the little shortcut modal help menu. Things like that, little UX improvements would be fantastic. But that one, I think, is entirely front end. I will be combing through the backlog this week and trying to label them or otherwise identify them, maybe put them in an epic that's indicates that they'd be good hackathon issues. I think the benefit this for us is that we have these big epics full of bugs and really no intention to work on them in the next 3 to 6 months in a focused manner. So this is a great way to address some of the more important ones. If you come across any and you happen to stumble across an issue, just let me know. Just ping me in Slack or in the issue.
I'm pretty sure there is a label, like good for community contributions or something.
Mm-hmm.
And given that things can only be in one epic, if they're already in another one where they should be,
yes,
that might be better.
Yeah. If they were, the only way I would move them into an epic, there's right now just like a generic settings UX bugs epic. I might move some of those out of there. But yeah, a label would be easier, and they are not exclusive. Cool. So yeah, let me know if you see any other candidates, but I will be looking this week to try and spread the work around. Otherwise, we'll have, unless I think Michael was feeling a little under the weather, I don't know if we'll have our weekly design and product sync today or if it'll be later in the week. Just keep an eye on the calendar for any changes. We'll talk more about settings and nav there, I'm sure. That's been his main focus. And other than that, I'm just getting somewhat up to speed with all the new responsibilities and doing a lot of housekeeping related to our group transition, getting direction pages and handbook pages updated and that kind of stuff. So that's where you'll find me this week. And with that, I think we're at the end of our agenda on our final engineering weekly sync for the static site editor group. I feel like we should say something like, raise a glass or something, but
pouring out for the fallen homies.
Yeah. And also just to clarify, because I don't know that I said these exact words in the beginning, the static site editor group is not getting, or the static site editor category is not getting deprioritized in any way. It's just coming along into the new editor group. So more updates on that in our editor weekly meetings, and our direction page will reflect our priorities and all that stuff moving forward. We just have a larger scope for this group.
I'll miss these meetings.
I will too. We can. We'll have to have something. You can come to the editor meetings. Just come hang out. It might be a little more than you want to know, but just join.
Okay.
I mean,
one of these days we'll get you just to officially join the team.
I think regardless of what is decided with the handbook, you and I will probably still be required to collaborate.
I really hope so. We need you.
Yeah, and I'm really interested to see through all this stuff with Netlify CMS, so I'll be bugging you about that, I'm sure. All right, everyone, I'll stop the recording. Thanks, everyone, for joining. Have a good